Today's guests are two brothers who have redefined what is possible, not only in endurance sports, but also in the way we think about inclusion, resilience, and human potential. Kyle and Brent Pease are the co-founders of the Kyle Pease Foundation, an organization that has spent more than a decade creating opportunities for individuals with disabilities in sports, employment, and everyday life. In 2018, Brent and Kyle made history as the first push-assist brother team to complete the IRONMAN World Championship in Kona, Hawaii. But that incredible moment is only part of their story. Together, they've completed more than 100 races, inspired audiences around the world, and shown that the greatest victories are often about far more than crossing the finish line. Born with cerebral palsy, Kyle has become a powerful voice for possibility and purpose. Brent, an accomplished endurance athlete and coach, has helped turn their shared vision into a movement that has raised more than $12 million and supported hundreds of athletes with disabilities. Their story is one of grit, brotherhood, faith, and the extraordinary power of inclusion. I can't wait for you to hear their story, and it's an honor to have them on the show. Welcome, Kyle and Brent, and thanks for joining us on Life Excellence.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Brent, you're the oldest of three boys, and your parents didn't know it right away when Kyle and his twin brother Evan were born, but at least part of their lives would look very different than they had imagined. And yet it seems like your family operated essentially just like every other family. How was life different for you growing up, say, than it was for your family, or your friends rather, and their families? And what was it about your mom and dad, who seemed like incredible people, that resulted in such an amazing family that fostered inclusion and refused to be held back by the challenges that existed because of Kyle's disability?
It's a great way to kick it off. It's interesting because I think we never thought of ourselves as different, and I think that was what my parents fostered. And different would have been, to me, would have looked like, well, we can't go to this park because it's not accessible. The answer was, well, all of our friends are going to the park. We will go and we will make sure that Kyle can be part of it. I remember pool parties when Kyle's lips would turn purple because my dad would play with him in the water until his lips turned purple because he didn't want to get out because he was playing with the other kids. And so I think obviously there were obvious differences. I just mean that what my parents fostered was inclusion. We will go to the park together. We will climb mountains together. We will do sports. And so much of that was just instilled in us from a very early age that Kyle was going to go with us and be with us, and we were going to be a family.
Kyle, you obviously had physical limitations growing up, and yet in reading about you and about your youth especially, your brothers seemed to treat you just as they did each other, and your family, as Brent mentioned, was very active and included you in most, if not all, family activities. What stands out most for you about life growing up?
That we were always together, that, like Brent mentioned, inclusion was a big part of growing up for me, and I don't want any shortcuts in life. I wanted to hang out with Brent and Evan, along with the other friends that I made growing up, and I just wanted to live a normal life and be accepted just like everybody else is.
The thing that really surprised me about your family activities is everything that you did as a family. Hiking, horseback riding, skiing. I know you were a big baseball family, and Kyle was included in all of that. Kyle, what family activity made you feel most included? maybe something you did as a family where you thought, I can't believe they're actually including me in this. And what effect did that have on your confidence, on your positive attitude, and on the development of your mindset as a possibility thinker? I know you're a very positive person.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a great question. I think we did so many different things growing up, but one that I always remember doing is going to Colorado to go skiing, and how skiing is a difficult sport, but we found a outdoor recreation center that specialized in adaptive skiing, and we went for several years, and just to go to the top of the mountain and look down, and we get a breath of fresh air, something that I never thought possible for my family. Always made a way for me to be a part.
And how did that make you feel?
It made me feel like I belonged, like I had a purpose on that mountain, to show not only my family but the other skiers on the mountain what I could do rather than what I can't do.
Just out of curiosity, what did that look like, skiing? I'm trying to envision going down.
There's so many different ways. Like if you just look up Paralympic skiing, you'll see, multiple different ways. But Kyle was basically in a sled with outriggers, and because Kyle doesn't have a lot of trunk control, he would have two people with him. One that basically had a tether, and he would kind of shout out, lean left, and Kyle would push his body to the left, and he would pull one side of the rope, and that would get Kyle to lean into the outriggers. And if they were going to the right, he would do it. And those guys were so strong. And then there would be like somebody to ski with us to kind of clear the way, to be like, I forget what they said, but, they would effectively make sure people knew, on your left, or let them know where they were so that Kyle could go. Kyle would get down the mountain ski faster than us. It was quite death-defying, to be honest, now that I think about it.
It sounds a little terrifying, but the way you describe the structure, I guess it makes sense that you can. I was just thinking you wouldn't be ahead of him. You would almost be behind him and sort of preventing him from going too fast rather
one
than
behind, one in front. Yeah.
One behind and one in front. Brent, what did all that look like from your perspective? Surely it took longer to do just about everything as a family, I'm guessing. And it seems like that could have caused impatience or maybe even resentment. And yet everyone in your family was committed to that, to operating as a family with all five of you. What values or traits were instilled in you growing up because of that? And what are you most grateful for as you reflect on the kind of person you are today because of your life growing up in your family and specifically growing up with Kyle as your younger brother?
I think some of it for me was less about how it was taught or instilled and more about how I experienced it. I remember really well one time, Kyle's got cerebral palsy with spastic quadriplegia. So the cerebral palsy, a condition, affects all four of Kyle's limbs. And his left arm, which you can't really see on camera, is strapped to his wheelchair. And it's very spastic. And I remember we were very young. This was at East Pelham. And Kyle's left arm flung a glass of milk across the room. My dad was traveling, so my mom's by herself with three boys. And I remember the milk being everywhere, And I remember, how calm my mom was. She didn't say anything to Kyle. She didn't make him feel bad about something he didn't have control over. And then she just kind of quietly, slowly cleaned up. And I remember helping her. And I just remember, things like that, of understanding, kindness and patience and empathy, what it must be like to fling a a glass of milk across the room. I remember taking Kyle to the bathroom in early years and his boxers or underwear being twisted and thinking how miserable an experience that must be to walk around with your underwear sideways all day, and saying something to Kyle. And rather matter-of-factly, Kyle said, "Oh, it's okay." And I thought, when you can't adjust it, you just become used to that, right? Like, you don't know, if you've never lived in a mansion, do you really know what it's like to have a mansion? Or do you just love the home you have? And I think my parents showed that, but those similar experiences, kind of crafted us. It was certainly when I was much older that I understood the challenges of what Kyle goes through and about what we went through. I think we always thought it was Kyle's challenge and we were there to help him, but it was ours too. It was challenging for us, but because those, the inclusion, the love, the kindness, the empathy were in front of us on display all the time, that has certainly shaped me and molded me to the role I play today, not only as Kyle's friend and brother, but as business partners running a nonprofit foundation to share that with as many people as we can.
One thing that stood out to me in researching for the show and reading your book was that I got the sense that you were all in it together, and that was something that I'm not sure how that got instilled in you, how that got instilled in Evan. Maybe it was because you really didn't know any different, but you mentioned it was Kyle's challenge, but you were there to help. You, just like the spilled milk, it seems like time after time, whatever came up, and really just in dealing with everyday life, right? It didn't require some event. Your lifestyle was in part supporting Kyle in just getting through the day, and your family in getting through the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think we know no other way. That's how we were raised. And to your point, that's how we go through life now. Gets focused on all the things that we can do together.
Yeah. You were in your early 20s, Brent, when you ran your first 10K, and that progressed into a triathlon and then a half Ironman, and maybe I'm missing a couple steps or a couple races, and then eventually a full Ironman. What was it that caused you to want to swim 2.4 miles, then ride a bike 112 miles, and then, as if that wasn't enough, run a full 26.2 mile marathon all in the same race? That's a huge progression from your first 10K.
Well, I just talked to somebody about this today a little bit, that one of them, like Kyle's, like you asked Kyle what was an example of when he felt most included. It was skiing outside. You mentioned baseball. I mentioned the pool. I think our family, whether we realized it or not, being outside and playing was a way to normalize things, and so whatever it was, we all felt really connected when we were doing something together, which was usually outside, even just sitting at a baseball game, not necessarily playing. I mean, we went to lots of Braves games, shout out Sid Bream. My parents were there when he slid across home plate in 1992. And, that's always been a connection point. And, I think for me, I was just going through my own journey, and I ran outside and was like, this feels incredible. And I ran a little further and a little further. And I had grown up swimming. And at the time, Ironman was just this mammoth challenge that you only did if you were just a little crazy, and if there was a little maybe. And it just seemed like such a crazy experiment. Could my body handle 140.6 miles? And there was just a lot of people doing it at the time. You know, I did my first one in 2010. From 2008, 9 to 2015, 16 Ironman. You know, you couldn't get into those races unless you had 4 computer screens going at once. So it was also a really popular thing. So that first Ironman was just me kind of rediscovering how much I love to play and how much I love to play outdoors. And for whatever reason, as I ran a little bit further and further, I just gravitated to this massive challenge.
I've had other endurance athletes on the show, and marathons and triathlons are remarkable physical and mental feats. But you two have really taken the phrase remarkable achievement to a whole new level. Tell us how Kyle got the bug, and what was it like to prepare for and then compete in your first race together?
Well, Kyle came to my first Ironman, you know, and watched it all day. You know, for me, it was a almost 13-hour day, 12 hours and 42 minutes. Mm-hmm. And Kyle watched the whole thing. And, you know, he watched my experience. He watched 2,800 other people that day and was really just kind of captivated by it. You know, not only what I was doing, but again, what everybody else was doing. And he was speaking to our friend Betty all day, who kind of kept needling him and telling him how great Ironman was and look at all these athletes with disabilities. And by the end of the night, Kyle was ready to talk to me about it. And he asked if it was something he could do. You know, and you've already asked some wonderful questions tonight about how our parents did it. And that was it. They simply said yes. And then they went about figuring it out. You know, this wasn't, when Kyle was growing up, it wasn't like you just did a Google search and or used AI to figure out all the different resources available. And so Kyle and I had to start digging and figuring it out. But the best part was always that we were doing it together. You know, that's always been the best part. And we get to train together. We get to spend time together. You know, the racing is almost like a byproduct of that, you know, or a byproduct of our upbringing. You know, the racing is one day, but it takes us, you know, 16 to 20 weeks to prepare for these things together. It takes me, I train year round. I never stop training. And it lets us find those spaces together.
So Kyle was there for your first Ironman, mm-hmm. and Kyle, you, for some reason, thought that would be a great thing for you to do too. How did you get from that point to actually completing your first race together? What was that process like? Training, sort of figuring out even what that would look like? Because Brent, everything that you had done up until that point was solo.
Yeah, I think we're making it the training that goes into Ironman event, and I get to love the process, the training, the with Brent, the build up to the race. That's the best part, because we're together and we're there for each other. And our race day, it just goes by so quick that before you know it, the race is over.
You had invested so much time in activities together, Brent. You talked about being outdoors. You did everything as a family growing up. Kyle, was it that you wanted to complete an Ironman, or that was yet another activity that you and Brent could do together and something else that you could achieve together?
No, I think that's a great question, Brian. I can think that it's something that I want to do, and it's something that I've always wanted to be an athlete, and I've always wanted to be an athlete with Brent, so together we made that dream a reality, and it gets really special every time we're out on the race course together, that we're doing something that is pretty cool, and we get to do it together.
Well, it's definitely cool. And I think most people, especially athletes, have some level of appreciation for Brent's difficulty in completing a try, or even in his part in the two of you doing it together. But Kyle, I have to say, after reading your book Beyond the Finish, I significantly underestimated the role you played in competing in events with Brent. So and I'm just being transparent. My thinking was that it was sort of a ride along, almost like a sidecar. If you envision a motorcycle with a sidecar, and you were going along for the ride, but it was far more than that. And also, as it turns out, it was anything but pleasant. These races are anything but pleasant for you. So it's not that it's super comfortable for you in the chair that you're sitting in now, but your accommodations, so to speak, during the race are nothing like that. Share with us what the race is like from your perspective, and the role that you play in competing, because you play a significant role as a motivator, as a positive source of inspiration, and helping in other ways too, I'm sure.
Yeah, thank you for recognizing the role that we both play. For me, when that gun goes off, or the horn goes off, I just go in kind of beast mode and just focus on helping us get to the finish line. And whether it's motivational quotes or I love you or whatever, I kind of look at it as the mind of a man, or no matter how much pain I'm in or what's going on with my body, with my spasms, I choose to focus on getting both of us across the finish line. So that's kind of my role with the team, that I just want to do whatever it takes for us to focus on that finish line.
Well, and clearly you have, and you've been very successful doing that in that support role and completing lots of races together. Brent, you competed in events, as we talked about, as a solo runner earlier in your career, and you and Kyle have completed over, I'm not sure what the exact number is, over 100, maybe closer to 150 events together, including 6 Ironman events. How meaningful has it been for you to have Kyle in the races you've competed in together?
It's significantly better for me, and what I get to watch him go through and persevere through, and what he can support me through, and what I go through, but what we can both experience together, just like we did as kids. I mean, we're just playing outside now for 14, 15 hours, and being out there with him that long, there's brotherly moments. We've fought, we've screamed at each other, we've cried, we've been kind and patient, but it's strengthened us as brothers to be able to go through that. Just as when we were a family growing up with a young child with a disability, to find ways to be outside and include each other and do those things was always important to us. And so to be able to share that today, it's a powerful feeling to get behind the chair and to look at the person that's in that chair and realize and recognize the strength that they have. And when they say things like believe, which is a mantra that Kyle repeats to me often, I know what he means, because he's believed in himself for a very long time, and he's trying to help me understand how to believe in myself too, when doubt creeps in and takes over. And so it's a really special experience that I get to do that with him.
It's really incredible. And again, as I was reading the book and reading about the dynamics of you racing together, and I put myself in your shoes, Brent, and I run half marathons. I've run just one marathon, and that's when I learned that I'm a half marathoner, not a marathoner. But I thought about what it would be like to have Kyle alongside me. And I actually prefer to run by myself when I'm doing training runs. And it's fun to run with people too, and you get a different dynamic. But I thought specifically about what it would be like to have Kyle with me when I'm running, and either sharing motivational quotes or saying believe, or telling me that he loves me, or yelling at me and saying, we are not stopping. We're going to finish this thing. Mm-hmm. And what an incredible and incredibly unique support structure to have. So I can see where that can be really invigorating and motivating, and give you that boost or that push or that lift or whatever it is that you need to finish, when maybe you're thinking that you might not finish, or you might not want to finish, or you want to stop, or whatever the feeling is. You have a great dynamic. You're a great team, the two of you. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Thank you.
The best team, I would argue.
Kyle, you've obviously battled tremendous obstacles your entire life. You could maintain that just getting through a day is a challenge, and something that most of us will never have insight into, or certainly never fully appreciate. How did the challenges you face in everyday life equip you to endure the challenges of a race, the challenge of, say, an Ironman?
Yeah, great question. I think it really goes back to our parents and the way they brought us up with a positive mental attitude. And just focus on what I can do. My days are, from a physical standpoint, they could be chaotic at times. But I'm sure that they could be chaotic for you or some of your listeners as well. But I choose to look at my days as, I get to do this. I don't have to do this. And when I have that shift in my perspective, then my mindset is very clear about what I want to do. The sky is the limit for me. And just because my body doesn't work the way I want it to work doesn't mean that I can't pursue the best of my life to the best of my ability. So that's the way I look at life. As I get to do this. I don't have to do this. And when you have a teammate and a brother that you care about, it makes it a lot easier to go through life with people that you love.
I love that you said it twice, that it's not that you have to do it, you get to do it. And that's such a powerful, really and I know you do this a lot, the words you use and the phrases that you use are so powerful. And that subtle distinction, it's just, it's the difference of a word, get to versus have to, really reframes things and causes you to look at it completely different. I think I love that the way you use words and your positive outlook on everything. Do you feel like you can do anything you set your mind to? It certainly seems that way in getting to know you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the brain is like a powerful tool, and if you set it up for success, then you can follow that roadmap that your mind sets for you. So I think it's key that your mind is always aligned with what you want to do in life.
Mm-hmm. Guys, training for events like a triathlon is arduous and demanding, and the races, as you know, can be brutal both physically and mentally. How do you keep each other motivated when you're training and when you're competing? And we've talked a lot about how Kyle motivates you, Brent. And yet, I'm guessing they're as positive as you are, Kyle. I'm guessing there may have been a time or two when you haven't exactly felt like being that positive source of motivation and inspiration. So I know it goes both ways. How do you keep each other motivated?
Well, I think you're right. Right, we're both human, but I think in that arena of sports, the other stuff shines brightest. You know, whether it was a phrase our parents said to us, I mean, Kyle said one earlier, positive mental attitude. That was a favorite saying of our moms to tell us to both have, to all three of us, to have PMA. You have to have PMA, she would tell us. Mm-hmm. And yet that shines through most when Kyle's racing. You know, and like I said, play was a big thing for us. And so when we're doing an Ironman, and we're playing, we both know that we don't have to be at our best the whole time, but if we can be at our best, if we can be best at showing up for each other, we can get through those things. I mean, the physical demand of that distance and that sport means that you're going to go through ebbs and flows. You're going to have bad moments. It's guaranteed. It's in fact, it's probably what brings us back to see how we handle them over and over again. And where Kyle shines is when I don't. I'm physically getting exhausted. My brain is getting foggy. My brain is starting to bang alarm bells. You can't do this. You can't do this. And Kyle screams out, yes, you can. Right? At the moment when I need it most, he says, yes, you can. And there's moments where Kyle is physically just not well. You know, his shoulder is spasming. His body is moving and fighting these Velcro straps. And, you know, I'll say to him, we're almost there. I love you. And that little shift brings him back to where we were, which was playing outside together. So, I mean, we've screwed it up. We can tell you those stories too. You know, we've screamed at each other. We've yelled at each other. We've sat in silence, you know, but we've also pushed each other to some pretty incredible places. And I'm really, really proud of those more than anything.
Well, it's awesome. And Brent, you mentioned your mom and instilling this idea of positive mental attitude and probably lots of other things, inclusion and being positive. Have you, growing up, you probably didn't think about that all that much, but I'm wondering, can you share a little bit about your parents and how they came to be such incredible support structures for you? Were they like that as adults before you kids were born, or was that something that they grew into? Have you had that conversation with them about where that came from and how it was that they instilled those great values and traits in you boys?
Well, our dad was definitely a hippie, hair down past his shoulders and everything. But he was of the love generation, and you just loved everybody for who they were. And he's very much a lover and a feeler. And, you know, he hugged and showed affection towards us until we were, you know, adult, you know, I mean, shoot, even today he wants to always show his love and appreciation for his boys. And that shines through Kyle and I when we're in those dark moments, you know, and understanding and appreciating love for all things. For Kyle, for who he is, for the people that we meet. I mean, my dad, when there would be droughts here in Atlanta, He would boil water for us to wash our faces. He wouldn't let us take showers, but that was his care for everything. And our mom, was this just fierce supporter and defender of everybody's right to live and everybody's right to be who they were. And Kyle only, steeled that resolve for her. And she became her best self because of her boys, but especially because of Kyle. Mm-hmm. And, but those lessons would get passed around to her boys. And you see that, especially you see both of them. So I should say, it's my favorite part of racing with Kyle is watching our parents come through him. This kind, compassionate, loving soul of Kyle, balanced against this fierce, competitive, I'll do whatever it takes to make this day work well for you, brother. What do you need? Of our mom coming through. And so, yes, absolutely. They have put those things into us through their own environment and their own experiences. And I certainly feel like it rings true how it comes out of both of us.
You're a great team. The two of you are a great team, and the five of you seem to be a great team as well.
We certainly try.
I'm guessing you're a crowd favorite at every race that you compete in. What does it feel like to cross the finish line at races? We've talked about the difficulty and having to get motivate each other, but there is a point where you cross the finish line. And I wonder what that feels like for you, first because of the tremendous sense of accomplishment, and also because of the applause, hopefully, but the acknowledgement that I'm sure that you receive from crowds.
Yeah, there's so many emotions built up at a finish line. I think for one, we can both tell you that we are elated that it's over, and we are so proud of our accomplishment. But then we also take our time when we go through the finish shoot to make sure that all of our volunteers, that they get all their accolades as well, because they are really our secret sauce behind the two of us. Without our equipment guys, our mechanical guys, Brett's wife, our parents, my caregivers, they're the real MVPs. And so we always take our time to acknowledge them. But then there's always a moment where Brent and I always embrace and tell each other that we love each other and it's an amazing feeling.
Has to be a great sense of accomplishment. What was your favorite race experience? I don't know if it's the same for both of you.
Always Kona.
Kona. And then share an experience you definitely don't want to repeat, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
We'll start with Kona. I mean, Kona was this, 7-year odyssey for us the first time we did it. And that finish line experience was made all the sweeter for what we went through and how we went through it, and so that was really, really special for us. And there is a lot of fanfare, and you are the star of the show when you cross the finish line, and everybody is, because of the way Ironman brings you in. They call your name, Kyle Pease. You are an Ironman, and you feel the weight of those words and what you worked for to earn that. But it's also just the magic and mystique of the islands of Hawaii. I mean, Kyle and I can't get enough of it. We were just there in April, and you just feel this. I mean, islands forged from underwater volcanoes over millions of years, And we felt that, and we felt it all day from everybody that was there with us, everybody that was part of that experience. So we'll do it again and again. if they'll have us. But the one we wouldn't want to repeat, I mean, we used to say the New York City Marathon, but the thing is that also just shows who we are as brothers, that we can come out on the other side of those. I mean, there's just been some we did one in Florida where it was, 39 degrees all day and windy and just, miserable conditions. And yet we've done that race twice. And so I think what it's really about is that we're willing to experience the good and the bad together. And Ironman is what we have loved the most because it pulls you cannot do an Ironman. I just said this to a group of people this weekend. These endurance events like this is like riding big waves. You cannot get to the summit, the peak of the top of the wave without riding it all the way up. And once you get up there, there is only one place to go, which is back down. And you have to experience those ebbs to have more flow. And that's what we think about in those moments. When you cross that finish line, you remember arguing at mile 62. You remember crying at mile 18 of the run. And you remember that your brother, despite his disability, has lived this amazing, positive life. And you just want to be there with him for that and right next to him.
Yeah, there's so much that gets packed into that. As you were talking about crossing the finish line, I got goosebumps and had the thought that it isn't, certainly it's everything that you experience that day, that race. It's certainly everything that you experienced in preparing for that race and the months of training or however long it took to prepare for the race. But it could go all the way back to the beginning, right? And your childhood and your entire lives can get packed into that sometimes. It's such an emotional experience and probably the full spectrum of emotions, right? Elation and because of the achievement and relief sometimes, probably depending on the circumstances. There's so much that gets packed into it.
All of it. Yeah. That's what I mean. Like that emotion that comes over you at the finish is all of those things. It's the triumph and despair. It's the good, the bad, and everything in between that comes with that, that you feel, because it's not that the finish line is what's defining us. It's the moments that allowed us to get there, what we persevered through. The finish line experience is a result of, in an Ironman, of 140 other experiences. And that's the beauty of doing stuff like what we do, is that you get to experience those challenges time and time again. Just like every morning, Kyle has to get put into a wheelchair to go about his day by somebody else. When we go to an Ironman, we choose to go have those experiences, just like Kyle leaves his house every day to go live his life. And you can't help but feel those things in those moments.
Absolutely. Switching gears a little bit, this year you're celebrating your 15th anniversary of the Kyle Pease Foundation, which was founded in 2011. Mm-hmm. Your not-for-profit organization is dedicated to improving the lives of people with disabilities through sports and inclusion programs. Whose idea was it to create the foundation, and tell us how that came about?
Yeah, it came about after we did our first triathlon. I just had the aha moment where I wanted other people that had similar disabilities to me and all disabilities to experience what my family gave me growing up. So that's how the Kyle Pease Foundation was born.
Brent, as I was reading about the origin of the foundation, I got the sense that you were maybe a little skeptical, or maybe others were a little skeptical as Kyle was sharing his vision for the foundation. Did I misread that? Or
well, I don't know. I don't remember how it was written, but the way I would recall it is, I don't think anybody was convinced that Kyle understood what a nonprofit business was, which was that it was a business. And I certainly didn't either. But we felt the weight of that work. And Kyle, just like when we race, was kind of pulling us all along of, we're going to do this. We're going to help people. And, he credits me as a co-founder because once we got going, we all of us involved in those days, we tightened up our laces and rolled up our sleeves and we just went to work. And we did whatever we thought had to be done to make this thing, actually work. So, yeah, I think there was, it certainly was not my idea. It was certainly not my suggestion. It was Kyle's. But I think Kyle, just like so much of what he's talked about here today with you, is he knew where he was going and he just needed to know who was coming with him.
Yeah. Well, you're both big thinkers, clearly. What are some of the biggest accomplishments of the foundation so far? What are you most proud of?
The first athlete we served that said, this is a thing. You guys are an organization. The first Ironman that we had that wasn't Kyle. That was a huge deal for us at the time. The first time we had 50 wheelchairs in a race. And then the employment program. One of the early lessons for us was to understand the same way we would enjoy being outside, that what we were giving to families was giving them that same, confidence and hope. And one of our athletes said, I want a job. And that, has created this whole new way of really just not just using sports as a means of inclusion, but using sports as a way to create inclusion far beyond any finish line.
Can you share a little bit more about what that looks like specifically? So what does it look like when you're helping an athlete to compete in a race? Or what does it look like when somebody comes to you and says, I'd like to find a job, and you help them secure that employment?
Well, from a racing standpoint, Kyle wanted to remove all burdens. So whatever it took, whatever it would cost, we were going to make that happen. And so that still exists today. We have over 55 wheelchairs, I believe. We have 7 bikes and 8 boats and all the other equipment you could imagine you would need to execute running races and triathlons. But we pay all the race fees. We pay caregivers. We do hotels to bring the team into a room together for dinner. Everything is about inclusion, and also giving people sports in the way Kyle never fully got to do it. He never had the team hotel on Friday night before the championship on Saturday. And we do that now. The employment piece, we're still slowly figuring it out. There's a lot of other people that do it and have been doing it for a long time. But for us, it was about creating meaningful work. Kyle types with one finger. Kevin, who works with us, types with his eyes. Justin Knight, who works with us, had never had a single job ever. And so we've tried to remove as many burdens as possible. If we need caregivers, if we need accommodations, our office is largely automated for families to be able to utilize, to our athletes to be able to utilize, and just something we continue to be extremely proud of.
And what does that mean for people who are served by the foundation in terms of the impact it has on them? What's your experience with that? You've been doing it 15 years now.
It's the pride and the joy and the confidence and the community. The community is I think we thought sports was it, without recognizing that we kind of had our community. We had a family. Kyle had so many friends. It's the community of what we do, of bringing people of similar circumstance together to say, hey, you matter, and what you do matters, and in fact, come do this with us. And now they are this, Kyle, when he speaks, always talks about them like a family. They feel part of a bigger family because of what Kyle's created.
What an awesome impact that you're having. It seems like we've made, and I'm looking at it from the outside, but it seems like we've made meaningful strides toward inclusion in sports and beyond. But where do you think we're still missing the mark? Not just in sports, but across society as a whole.
It's certainly getting better, as you said. I mean,
I can get what I see it. I think what we do, it brings people together, and I think we need more of that. We need more people working together and going for their common goal.
Mm-hmm. Kyle, do you have a moonshot goal for the foundation? You're a big thinker, something that seems almost impossible, but if you could accomplish it, it would be transformational in terms of the impact you could have on people?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would love to raise $10 million a year and help 300, 400 athletes a year. Right now, that's kind of hard to think about that, but anything is possible, and I believe that we have the team and we have the mission to accomplish that.
And where are you at now in terms of the number of athletes that you're able to impact on an annual basis? You mentioned wanting to get to 300 to 400 would be a moonshot goal.
Yeah, I think last year we helped over 170 athletes.
Okay.
Crossed over 1,300 finish lines. And this year we have a goal of 190, 200. So I think the goal of 300 is very attainable.
Sure. Hey, how can our listeners and viewers learn more about and get more involved with either inclusive sports generally or with the Kyle Pease Foundation specifically?
Well, for us, you can certainly visit the website. That's kind of the one-stop shop for the newsletter, social, signing up as a volunteer and supporting. That's kylepeasefoundation.org. But for the listeners that are maybe outside of the southeastern section of the country, we are also in Utah. There's a lot of organizations out there that are creating inclusion in sports. Inclusion in life. And I would encourage you to be curious about that. I'd encourage you to seek it out, because it's really easy to look the other way when you see somebody wheeling past you in a wheelchair. It's a lot better to just ask them how their day is. And that's what these organizations are doing. They're telling people, not only do you matter, but we want to hear about you. So seek it out. KylePeaseFoundation.org to meet us, to follow, to support, and to keep up to date in case some of those volunteer areas or opportunities show up in an area near you soon.
I appreciate you sharing that. Guys, as you know, our show is called Life Excellence, and I'm curious, what does excellence mean to you?
Excellence means that you always push beyond your own limit, that you are always pushing that envelope to see what is next, to find a way to say yes when somebody says no. That's what excellence looks like to us.
I would add that excellence is not a state, but a destination. And so, creating that is what you do along the way, and the way you learn from your mistakes and your ups and your downs, and that takes you towards that state. Because I've watched Kyle do that I won't age him here tonight, but I've watched him do it for a long time.
I love what both of you shared, and it's definitely excellence. Both of those explanations, those definitions. Brent, what's the biggest lesson you've learned from Kyle that's changed the way you've lived your life?
We choose our attitude. Kyle could choose to be a lot of things, and he chooses to be positive and happy, and he chooses to be excellent. So I try to be a little bit more like Kyle each day.
I love that. And I think after listening to this show, we will all strive or ought to strive to be a little more like Kyle. Kyle, you are such an inspiration because of your courage, your positive attitude, your relentless determination, and your apparent refusal to let anything stop you from what you want to do in life. You know as well as anyone that life doesn't always go the way we want it to, and obstacles often get in the way of what we want to achieve. What advice do you have for all of us about overcoming adversity and chasing our dreams?
I would just say, just take that first step, because you never know where that first step or that first wheel could lead. And when you take that first step, you never know how that's going to impact somebody else, allow you to help them while you're helping yourself as well. So that's how I look at adversity, is just take a step towards something that you want to achieve.
That's great advice. I've heard you say that the finish line isn't the end. How do you measure success when the finish line isn't the ultimate goal?
Well, we still measure those as outcomes. I mean, Kyle said it, over 1,300 finish lines. But what we've learned is that, that feeling at the finish line fades, right? You move past it. They don't let you stand at the finish line for the next 30 years and tell everybody, look at what I did. And so, but it becomes this catalyst for growth. What did you experience along the way, and what can you take from that? And we've seen that here at the foundation. I finished an Ironman. I want a job. I did a marathon. I want to do more with my life. And so sports just became this catalyst. So the finish line was really the opportunity for growth, for more inclusion, for more excellence, for more support, for more family. And it's something that we're continuing to evolve and learn from, because we thought the finish line was it. I mean, when we've done 150 of these things, give or take. And I can tell you about some finish lines where we were pumping our fists and telling everybody, we're great, look at what we did. But as we've grown, we've learned that those finish lines are just a small moment and not a full measure of anything that we've done. It's a snapshot into who we are and what we can do.
That's awesome. Brent and Kyle, thank you so much for joining us today. This show has really made a huge impact on me, and it's truly an honor to meet and get to know both of you.
Well, thank you so much. We greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for being on the show. Thanks for tuning into Life Excellence. Please support the show by subscribing, sharing it with others, posting about today's show with Brent and Kyle Pease on social media, and leaving a rating and review. You can also learn more about me at brianbartes.com. Until next time, dream big dreams and make each day your masterpiece.